All right, then welcome back. This is Business Center right here on Metropole TV. And remember, we are going to I'm going to remind you our question of the day. We had asked you, how long does it take for Napier grass to be ready for harvesting? How long does it take for Napier grass to be to be ready for harvesting? Send us your comments on our Facebook. We are live on Facebook. Send us your comments and tell us where you're watching us from. Even if you can guess when Napier grass is ready for harvesting, just tell us, and we'll sample some of your comments throughout the show. And now we are going to be joined by David Ndegwa, who is the managing director of Taccazze Horticulture. He's here with us. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon.
Okay. Now we are just going to talk about Napier grass farming, and let's start by the basics: planting. How do you plant Napier grass, and what kind of soil is well as fertilizer as conclusive for Napier grass?
Thank you for having me today. Thank you for that good question. First of all, let me say that Napier is a very important fodder. And if I go back straight to how the Napier grass is planted, let's start with the soil. In waterlogged soil. So if you are planting Napier, you have to select your soil and ensure that the soil is well drained. When it comes to planting Napier, you need to have a well-prepared seedbed. And by seedbed I mean where the actual planting will take place. The ideal land preparation is supposed to be you prepare your land similar to the kind of till that you get when you're planting maize. That is, you plow your land. You can either use a disc harrow, a disc plow, a moldboard, or a chisel. Then, if you are planting on your soil is virgin, you can do harrowing. But if your soil is you're planting, you intend to plant in an area whereby you had other crops, you may not need to do your harrowing in order to reduce the cost. When it comes to planting, spacing is ideal. It's very, very important. Once you've prepared your land, you measure. You measure rows of 1 meter. From row to row, it's 1 meter, and from plant to plant is 60 centimeters. Once you mark the holes in 1 acre, you make your holes 9 inches deep. From one hole to the other, we said it's 60 centimeter. And I repeat, from one hole to the other is 60 centimeters, and from one row to the other is 90 to 100 centimeters. So once you do 9 inches hole, you'll put in your fertilizer, preferably DAP, 10 grams per hole. For you to measure 10 grams, you just need to get a bottle top. A bottle top, when it is full of fertilizer, that is approximately 10 grams, and you put that into a hole. It is also advisable to use manure in order to make your soil be in a position to be able to enhance the water holding capacity and also aeration in your soil. Once you do that, you mix properly, and that hole will be ready for planting. And then, in terms of selecting the planting material, all what you need to do is to get canes from anode Napier grass, which you have to cut between canes that have got 3 to 5 internodes. You bury the internode, the 2 internodes, into the soil and cover with the soil at a slanting angle of 45 centimeters. And that way you'll have managed to plant your Napier grass. Thank you.
Okay, and now you've spoken about the sizes, the spaces that someone needs to put to make sure that they put in on the ground in order to grow this Napier grass. And what are some of the requirements as a farmer that you need to have in order to plant Napier grass? And also, on that, also you can just explain to us what's the importance of this spacing in planting Napier grass.
Okay, if I may come in and talk about the importance of the spacing. Once you plant the Napier grass, it is capable of tillering. And that spacing is ideal. Once it tillers, it should not overlap. So you want to create spaces whereby you'll be able to walk through, and that's why the width is actually 90 centimeters, and the space between plant to plant is 60, whereby you don't need to walk within those lines, but eventually those will overlap and it will appear like it was one line. Now, what you require in order to plant Napier grass, for you, you have to have land. Land is very, very important. And also, when you're selecting land, you have to avoid waterlogged conditions. You also have to have the source of planting materials, either from neighboring farmers who have got overgrown Napier, where you can get canes. You can either use canes or you can use splits. Splits is where you go to the stump that has old Napier and try to get some split from that, which you may use for planting. You also need a panga. You also need to have fertilizer, manure, and also the skills. Mainly the factors of production, which is you have to have enough capital. Once you have the land, you have the capital. You have to have labor. You have to have the skills, and that is the management.
All right, and
also the other important thing is on the requirement, you have the need on what you want to do with your Napier is also very important. You have to have either cows or you're intending to grow Napier for selling as a fodder crop. So you can grow Napier even if you don't have cows and you sell it. It makes a lot of business sense by doing that.
All right. And now, as a farmer, are there some activities that you need to do in order to maintain Napier grass? Are there any activities that you need to do?
Yes, planting is one of the things that you have to do. But the other thing is that for you to have good Napier, you have to manage it properly. And one of the management aspect is weeding. You have to weed it on time. The other management activity, that is now removing anything undesired weed, anything that is not Napier, you have to be removed. Also, you have to do your top dress. Top dressing is the term used to an additional fertilizer, mainly nitrogenous fertilizer, which are applied once the crop has already established its roots. These are for increasing the nitrogen content of the Napier, to have a big biomass, enlarge the leaf size of the Napier. And the other management practices is harvesting, which I'm going to I'll talk about. I'll explain to you about later.
All right. And now this maintenance, you find that there are also some diseases that affect this Napier grass. What are some of the diseases that affect the growing of Napier grass?
Luckily, Napier grass doesn't have a lot of diseases that affect this. And one of the diseases of significant importance is head smut, which manifests itself as thin stems and thin leaves. You know, there are some varieties of Napier, like banana grass has got very broader leaves than the French Cameroon. You find that if it is affected by smut, you'll find that it has narrower leaves. And then for the varieties that flowers, you'll be able to see the darkening of the florette, the area that forms the flower. And when it comes to pests, there are very few pests which attacks the Napier. There's also another viral which is called Napier grass stunt disease. That's a viral disease which manifests itself as yellowing of the leaves. You see that your crop has got very short internodes, and sometimes it withers and dries off. Thank you.
All right, and now we've talked about what are the requirements you need as a farmer. We've talked about how you maintain Napier grass, and now tell us, how do you harvest this Napier grass once it's gone through all these processes? Now, how do you harvest it?
Once you have maintained your crop and it's growing well, you have put fertilizer. Luckily, it could be raining, and if there's no rain, for those who could be able to add water, you can add water. But when it comes to the stage of harvesting, Napier, you need to time it because the height, you look at the height. When it attains the height of 2 feet, 2 to 3 feet, that's the most ideal size for cutting Napier. And what you do is to come for a farmer to get a panga. You can come and uh, chop the Napier, and the best way of utilizing it is using a chaff cutter because it has got it has got thick stems. You need to break it and so that you increase the consumption of Napier by your animals. The other thing that is important to note here is that Napier carries a lot of water. It has about 70% of water. And the best practice would be to wilt it. You cut it today and then let it be wilted over the sun within like 24 hours time. Then you feed your animals on the following day. So once you allow Napier to go past 60 or 100 centimeters, 1 meter long, it starts the protein content of Napier goes down, and it has to become more, get more fiber as opposed to protein. So that's how you do harvesting. It's actually very easy and simple.
Okay, and now maybe lastly, what are some of the challenges that affect Napier grass growing, and how can a farmer cushion themselves from these challenges that that affect this growing of Napier grass?
Most of the challenges that comes around is getting the planting material sometimes can be challenging because what I've explained to you is that the canes are the most ideal for planting. And you find that at the stage whereby most of the farmers harvest the Napier grass at, it's not easy to get the canes. So that's one of the challenge. The other challenge is the ability to the skills of how to grow Napier, because if one farmer can have 1 hectare, an acre of Napier, and another one similar acre, but depending the management of the two plots may give different yields. The one who used manure and also is top dressing might get a better yield than the person who is not doing similar practices. Also of importance here to note is that once you plant your Napier, it takes between 3 to 4 months for you to start harvesting the first crop. And from the first crop, you harvest at an interval of between 8 to 6 weeks, depending on the rainfall.
All right, thank you so much. That has been David Ndegwa, who's the managing director of Taccazze Horticulture. He was just talking to us about Napier grass growing and different ways in which farmers can make sure that the Napier grass is good and well for harvesting. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we're going for a short break. We'll be right back. But remember, our question of the day today is how long does it take for Napier grass to be ready for harvesting? Send us your comments on our Facebook. We are live at Facebook, on our Facebook at Metropole TV KE, and we'll read some of your comments. But I'm receiving some comments here. Nancy from Kamulu says the answer is 3 months. And then Onyancha from Kisii anasema good show Kelvin. It takes 3 weeks. We'll read some of these comments as we go on, but first we are going for a short break. We'll be right back.